You're listening to Life Check Yourself with life coach, transformational leader, and dating and relationship badass, Marni Battista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important life and love issues you want to know about. So, if you're ready to life check yourself in your relationships, your career, and the areas of your life that matter most to you, and you're not afraid to be called out on your, stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Life Check Yourself with Dr. Ricky Arenson. What women don't understand about men. Ladies, welcome to another fantastical episode. Today, you know that I have a passion for really great, smart men with fantastic accents, and I have manifested yet another one that you're going to love. Dr. Ricky Arenson is a dual-trained endocrinologist and geriatrician. He formerly lived in Perth. He's just moved to Melbourne with his wife of 20 years and their 4 kids. I don't know what you're doing now, but you used to be the director of the Murdoch Endocrinology and Diabetes Center and the head of the Department of Geriatric Medicine at the Royal Perth Hospital. So maybe you'll tell us what you're doing now. But what he has been up to is working with patients who've reached 100 years of age and asking them what is the secret to their longevity. It wasn't eating acai berries or doing yoga or maybe even living in a blue zone. It was having positive long-term relationships. And he wrote a very amazing book that's funny with a super serious and important topic called Women Are Superior to Men. We all love that title, which talks about why many couples have the same arguments again and again, how often to have sex, men don't notice or pick up the mess. I'm laughing because I literally just told my husband, like, are you 10? And how men communicate in grunts or jokes when their wives are looking for a serious conversation, and how to change all that. He's worked with over 30,000 patients. He's got 1 million awards. He's written over 100,000 pages in his area of expertise. And you're also a stand-up comedian, which is amazing. So first of all, what are you doing now? What you left the hospital in Perth. Now what are you doing in Melbourne?
There's like a million questions and answers that you've already
I know.
alluded to there. Look, my title of my book, unfortunately, I take very seriously. So I've really moved to Melbourne because my wife has greater attachment to the city, and my wife and kids really wanted to move to Melbourne. Perth's a very parochial city. It's one of the most isolated cities in the world. It's a lovely place to bring up young kids, but it's not a very dynamic city in many ways. And believe it or not, my wife is a doctor and medical inventor. And it just happens that Perth got a bit small for what she needs to do. So we've moved here with career and my kids' long-term aspirations in mind. It definitely wasn't a good career move for me because I'd really kind of reached the best point that you can reach in your career in Perth. And by that, I mean that I was my own boss in everything I did, publicly and privately. And the best thing was that even the health minister in my state would answer to me, but I didn't answer to her because my job was such that I actually represented all the doctors in the state and could call her in to chat to her about things that were going wrong. So that was amazing. So I've left all of that behind. What am I doing here? Well, something very mundane. I'm actually seeing patients, which I must say I love. It's actually my first love, being a doctor.
Love that.
I really hope that I can eventually get my stand-up comedian start back up again, because I've got a show that I've written called Laughter Isn't the Best Medicine, What Your Doctor Really Thinks About You, which I'm really hoping to do, but it's super hard, you're right, to do a million things at once. But I've got a lot of different things on the go, and I'm writing another book at the moment about parenting. So lots of stuff going, and actually practicing a lot of medicine. So
oh my gosh. Well, I feel so honored that you wanted to come on our little show here. Well, let's talk. First of all, when I was preparing and I was reading your bio, I literally was like, is this man in my head? Everything that you're writing about is so real. And so let's just start off with the beginning, which is the book title and the reasons. I know you have 8 reasons why women are superior to men. What are they, and how do we take that knowledge and make our relationships better?
I'll tell you something firstly quite funny about that. It's so interesting how politics shift. When I started writing the book, what I really wanted to do was talk about the ways that women are amazing. And I mean, I think we're all most of us are incredibly lucky. We have amazing mothers, and many of us are lucky enough to have fantastic wives. And I often sit with patients and they're complaining about their lives and everything's so hard, particularly women patients. And then at the end of the discussion, I just turn to them and I go to them, well, what you really need is a wife to women patients. So I really wanted to appreciate the fact women are amazing mothers. Mother's Day is a very special day for most people in the world. And for me personally, I personally think that wives are much nicer than husbands on average in many different ways. I guess the difficulty with the title of the book is that the culture that we lived in shifted so much in the politics that when I started off writing the book, I thought I was doing this really positive thing, appreciating women. And there's certainly nothing in the book that's anti-men, because I'm a very happy man. I love being a man. I don't know if other people think so, but I feel very manly all the time.
Right.
A super masculine guy, But so I actually think men are great and have their place in the world. And I hate the new culture that's actually extremely anti-men, puts men down and makes out that husbands are horrible and all men are toxic and masculinity is toxic. And all these things are very anathema to me. And when I set out writing the book, I didn't actually recognize that we would even reach a point like that in society. I just wanted to appreciate women. And there are so many ways that my wife is better than me and does things so much better than I could do. And I wanted to appreciate that. And as you said, also laugh about the fact that so many couples fight about the same things. And we all like to think we're so special and unique. And yet you talk to your friends and they're all arguing about the same things. So really the title almost became a little bit misleading in many ways. And a slightly almost humorous aside, when I brought out the book, I had a backlash from conservative Americans who said to me, you can't write a book like that because it's anti-men and the poor men, and I don't feel comfortable reading your book because it's anti-men. I said, well, have you actually read the book? Because it definitely is.
Right.
So I went back and I actually added a chapter called Why Men Are Superior to Women. So I have 8 reasons why men are superior to women, because men do amazingly important things. And I would make the point that most men are actually loving husbands and caring fathers and do valuable things in the world. And I know it's a terrible thing to say, but there are actually things that men on average do a lot better than women as well. So it's been such an interesting journey, because I never set out to want to be divisive or that controversial. I actually set out to celebrate the fact that we've lost the valuable idea in society that being mothers and wives, and the fact that women do that so well, is incredibly crucial to the fabric of society and to the happiness of a family. And I haven't even answered your question, why women are superior to men. But I just want to add even one more thing. I apologize.
Yeah, for sure.
Such an exciting subject. But I was thinking all the sort of drift of where feminism has gone to. Feminism started off wanting to take care of women and women's rights and give them equality. And I think we should never, ever compromise that, because obviously, my wife's a doctor and inventor, medical inventor. I'm hardly someone who's wanting to hold women back. I've just moved cities and, not trashed, but sort of compromised my own career for hers. So I really do believe in those principles. But I think what we've lost in all of that is that women are fundamentally genetically designed to be mothers. And there's no escaping that. The human species requires that for survival. And they have special, beautiful design to enable them to do that. They are loving and caring. And I believe women have this ability to bring out the best in their families. So women sort of are amazing at bringing out the best and connecting families, connecting husbands, because many men are slightly differently wired emotionally, and women are so good at bringing out that connection. So I think that that's what's been lost, is celebrating that women are amazing mothers, and it is the most beautiful thing. And if you look even in the wild at lions with their cubs or any mother with their young, it is something genetically and biologically beautiful. So I guess I wanted to celebrate that. But
I love that. Well, let me ask you another question, because I just know that there are so many women who listen to this show who are not mothers by choice, right? But are looking for a relationship or are amazing at nurturing and loving and giving in other ways. So I just want to make sure, because I know that what you're saying is that we have these innate qualities that make us unique, and that they're they're powerful, whether we use them at work or whether we use them in a family or in our relationship. So for the woman who's like, yeah, I chose not to have children, and this probably will help us answer the first question, which is what are the ways in which they're superior? How does that follow through if someone does not choose to have their own biological children?
So I think one of the most difficult things that's happening in society is we're living in times where everyone is seeking conflict. And in all the ways that we see social media and I would unfortunately label it the radical left, promoting this idea that we must fight with each other instead of wanting to be together. And I don't care what race you are. I don't care what gender you are. I don't really care what you identify as, not in a negative way, in a positive way, because to me, you're a fellow human being. So instead of that sort of idea of unity, which is really what we started at, that point was where we started with, that we all want to come together and see each other as human beings and see the value and the beauty of being human rather than dividing up by race and gender and sexual preference, which is what we don't want. We have this idea now that we all have to fight about things. So by no means am I a fan of promoting the idea that women should have children to find value in life, that women should or shouldn't work. I think that is an individual decision for every human being. And the question more is, how do I find happiness and success in what I'm looking to do? And it's the same for couples. When you talk about gender roles, the question is, how does your marriage work best? How does your partnership work best? What are the ways that you can make your life the best with your partner? And for some, if the husband's going to stay home and wash dishes and the woman's going to go to work, fantastic. And if you're a same-sex couple, how do you make that work? All these things are not for me to judge. I can only write a book that's about what I've experienced, which is heterosexual marriage. But I think the lessons that are contained within that are the same for us all, because we're all human. So I think when you ask about women who don't want to have children, well, interestingly, there is direct and fairly conclusive evidence that mixed gender teams are better than single-sex teams. So when I say gender there, I guess nowadays we call it sex more than gender, but single-sex teams. So a group of men working together in a business actually don't produce as good results and as effective a team as if you mix women in. And I think that's because women bring, as you said, unique qualities to that team that, men don't have. They introduce certain ways of thinking and certain ways of emoting that men don't necessarily always have. And I think that it creates diversity. It's actually a good thing. And when I say that, I don't mean what I think is now this crazy idea that we have to have this enforced quota system on everyone, which is actually an inequality. No matter how people cast it, and it reduces quality of outcome, but actually true diversity improves quality of outcome because people who bring different qualities to a team make the team stronger. And our strength is in diversity. So in our genes, genetically, we are actually designed to be diverse. Children don't have exactly the same genes as their parents, and we all bring something different to the genetic pool, to the human race. We bring different qualities and personalities and abilities. And humans are, in that way, probably unique in that we are, as a species, dependent on that diversity. So you have to have someone who builds houses. You have to have someone who teaches kids in a school, and education is actually a survival necessity for humans. Older people teach younger people how to survive. Young kids are born, babies are pretty, I don't know about your babies, but mine are pretty useless. I was like, when my baby was like 3 months old, I said, hey, do you want to go down to the shop and just buy me some milk? I mean, it's just around the corner. Useless. I mean, they couldn't do anything except be very demanding. So these things are all, humans are all doing different things that enable human survival. So if you have a woman who chooses not to work, not to have children, you can choose either, you can choose not to work as well. I think the real question for that person is, how are you going to find happiness and success in your life? It's not for me to judge what path you take, but how are you going to find the path that makes you happy?
I love that. That's amazing. So let's talk about this number one thing couples fight about, and what can they do to stop fighting about it? I'm so curious to know.
Well, the classic, I think I'd divide the fights in my book into sort of slightly more humorous ones and slightly more serious ones, because I think they are a bit different.
Yeah.
Interestingly, the biggest reason couples get divorced in most studies is inattention. So people feel that they're just not getting enough attention from their partner. And that ties in with the whole research evidence that what most human beings want to feel is valued. So we all have this incredible desire to feel valued. And if we feel that we're not valued in our partnership, then that's something which is very difficult for us. And the sort of serious fights that people have are generally about sex, about money, and about children. So those are serious fights, and often those are like the ones that are really bad. I think on an average day-to-day basis, from my experience, and this is hard to survey when you survey it, I think the things that couples argue a lot about are domestics. And I would actually argue that the number one most prevalent and common fight in an average day is about domestics. So I'd like to say it's about sex, but I think sex is a very common fundamental fight between couples. But domestics are what people fight about. Women get very irritated about men walking through houses and standing on dirty laundry on the floor and not putting stuff away after them. My wife still can't tolerate the fact that my mind just does not have any part of it that can work out where things are in the house. Like, something that I can go get a whisk. I don't know if you guys in America call them a whisk, I can go get a whisk 5 times. Well, I probably only have used the whisk about 5 times, but never mind. But I can go get something multiple times, and I still just, every time I go to find it, I start looking at it from scratch, and then I yell to my wife, where is it? And she gets super angry, and she's like, I told you that 57,000 times. How do you not know?
Why can't you guys remember where stuff is? So fun.
I think there's two different parts to that. I think the one is that we can't find things in cupboards, which is a little bit different to just not having a part of your brain that codes for where things in the house are kept.
Right.
So I think you could write a book on all the things that husbands don't know. So that's only one of many. So I'll give you an explanation for both very briefly.
Okay. I love it.
The reason men can't find things in cupboards, and this is definitely like, when people who read my book, I have a lot of my patients read my books. I get a lot of feedback from them, for example, and they always come in, and almost the first thing they mention is like, the wives always go, yes, I was so excited when I read about why men can't find things in cupboards because my husband can't find anything in the fridge or the cupboard. So that's a classic thing, wife sends her husband to the fridge or the cupboard, get me the butter, and the husband yells back, I can't find the butter, you didn't buy the butter. And then the wife comes and finds it straight away and smacks him on the back of the head. Although, of course, you and I...
Every day in my house, yeah.
Although you and I obviously abhor violence, but still we know it does happen. And while we all agree that racism against whites and blacks is still racism, I think we can also agree that mild violence from wives and husbands is probably okay. No, I didn't really say that. But I'd like to know if there are any husbands out there having been whacked at some stage by their wives. When I've never whacked my wife, but my wife has definitely whacked me a few times, like not like violently, but she's just come on, like, what's wrong with you? So I think that is part of life, and I'm okay with that. I survived.
So funny.
So the problem for men's brains, and this is something scientifically proven, is that we tend to focus all attention in our brains in one area of the brain. So when you do functional brain studies on MRI, men, when they think about something, everything is very focused in one area. Whereas women use their brains far more diversely. And when you look at women's brains activity, there's a lot going on and there's things going on everywhere. And that is quite, if you just look at usual life, you actually realize that's true, because men, when they focus on something, they become very uni-focused. You can't distract them. To my wife's great irritation, she kind of has to whack me to get my attention. And even then, my eyes will probably drift back to my phone and they'll say, oh, I can talk to you and read my phone at the same time. And she's like, you cannot. Look up.
I'm writing.
Look into my eyes. She's like a hypnotist. Look into my eyes. Look into my eyes. So,
so funny.
That's something which is based on brain activity, and it's a reason for that. And that is that no matter what modern sociologists might want to think, evolution and genetics are very, very powerful. And men are fundamentally designed to protect their families and to hunt and to fight. We actually are designed to that. Humans have depended on that. We fight each other. And we're not the only species that does that, by the way. People like to say, oh, humans are so bad. Well, you should see monkeys fighting each other. They don't like each other either, and lions fight each other. So we have a planet that is competitive, and a lot of species are territorial, and so are we. And we do have to fight and protect our families at times, and it's horrible, and it's an awful part of life, but it's true. And men generally protect their wives because there's some horrible people out there, and who's going to step forward and protect their family it isn't in reality going to be the wife. I can tell you, it's not a good decision. Men are fundamentally bigger, stronger, heavier, and more designed for combat.
Right.
And so when you hunt or you fight, your focus is on kill or be killed. That's the reality. And you have a single focus. You're not worried about whether your children have done their homework and which one has to be picked up from ballet at 6 o'clock. You are right now in a fight for life and death, whether you're hunting a big animal or whether you are fighting in a war or any of those things. So we are really designed for that. So we focus very powerfully and intently on one target, and we're very good at that, and it's hard to distract us. As you know, your husband's typing on his phone, and you go like, hey, Russia just launched the entire nuclear arsenal at the States, and the husband goes, don't bother me now, I'm fixing my secretary. So that's around the world. So so men are very unit-focused. Women use their brains very diversely, and it's actually quite a fascinating skill because women don't actually multitask per se. There's no word for what they do. It's kind of a magical quality where they have the sense of where lots of things are at any given time, and they retain some sense of where they are in time and space. So they're not focusing on the fact that a child needs to be fetched at 3 and another child is climbing a jungle gym and that they're on a Zoom meeting to work. They just somehow can task distract very rapidly, but keep all those things in mind at once. So even though they're doing a work meeting and they're cooking dinner, they still somehow know that a child needs to be fixed at 6 and that one's over there and that one's over there.
Right.
And they can very rapidly task distract between those things, but keep them all in mind. So they've done studies actually on multitasking where when men and women do multiple maths problems simultaneously or do more than one maths problem at once. And no one can actually do that. So it's not truly multitasking. But I'll give you a very, real realization of this for me. When I had young kids and I took them to the park and I was helping one up the slide, climb the ladder. And then I'd be helping them very focused on that. And 2 or 3 minutes later, I'd be, where's the 3-year-old gone? And it could be near the road. And I really had no sense of where they were. And that literally does not happen to my wife. She always knows where everyone is and what time people need to be fetched and everyone's schedule. So I think that's something many of us experience, and it's actually physiological and evolutionary because women are fundamentally designed to look after young families and to breastfeed babies and to bring up infants. And the sociological change that we've seen where we suddenly have this idea that women must be career women or there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing about that is it's happened very suddenly in history because not very long ago, there was no baby formula, there was no contraception, and women had to deal with periods and pregnancies and babies because there were no technological alternatives. So we've had this very rapid sociological shift, but we're still genetically and physically and biologically the same as we were 50 years ago.
I love that because I used to do this talk about what women want in a partner, and they would want this really strong, guy, right? But they also, while they're independent and they were sick of making decisions and all those things, even though it wasn't very culturally accepted, they're still at the unconscious level wanting a guy on a white horse to ride up and save them. Do you know what I mean? Even though everyone has fought very hard to be self-sufficient. And I was saying there's this power dynamic. You want to be powerful, but you also want to, have that kind of I'm going to call it old-fashioned sociological paradigm where the guy's making the decisions and so I think I say to women, you have to get very clear because you can't have both all the time. You have to sort of be fluid in that and accept the guy when he's I don't know, what do you want to do? Instead of saying, why can't you just make a decision? So I think that's a really important thing to understand is the context of time and that our wiring isn't going to catch up with the changes that have been made.
I think you make an important point about time, and I'll come back to that. But I firstly want to say that if your career aspiration is to write the next Snow White for Disney, I don't think they're going to employ you. So I'm just joking because now the notion of men on white horses rescuing women has become so unfashionable. But it is
protective.
contrary to what many women actually want, because they want as you said, a strong, sorry to say, handsome man to come and be strong and masculine around them. So, because that's what we're designed for. Masculinity and femininity are magical powers by which we attract each other so that humans can reproduce and survive. But that's just reality. And if some men are a bit effeminate and some women are more masculine, that's fine. It's not to be prejudiced against that, but just to say a fundamental of human survival has been that men and women up until now really did have to do things together to have babies otherwise, and they had to find each other attractive. Otherwise we couldn't survive. But I think the thing that I would say to what you've just said about time is that one of the difficulties of the modern day, and maybe humans have always been like that, is we're very impatient. We're very into expedience. We're used to scrolling past anything we don't like on our phone, and everything should just be the way we want it to be. But relationships don't work like that. Relationships are a long-term process. And so I would cast that in a slightly different way and say women are often attracted to young men. When women are young, they go out to, a pub or a bar. And if you look at the average 20-year-old man, like, I'm sorry to say, they're drinking beer and making rude jokes and trying to be funny all the time. And that's not actually the ideal husband and father 10, 15 years later. And I think that is what women do so well. They're so good at nurturing and bringing out the best in other people. After being married for a few years, initially having a hunky husband and, he's really manly and marches around, is like, oh, wow, he's so attractive. But then you get down to the responsibilities of running a home, and you want a husband who's responsible. You don't want a husband who's coming home at 2 a.m. from drinking with his friends at the bar. You need to spend quality time together in your relationship. You have kids. And as we know, having children is an enormous responsibility, but it's also an enormous strain on a relationship and on each individual, because children are unbelievably demanding. Babies, particularly and infants, demand 24/7 care from the parents. And so at that stage, women really need their husbands to grow up a bit and be a partner. And if they don't, then that becomes an issue of resentment in many relationships, because the woman's going, hey, why should I be the one up the whole night every night and struggling and exhausted, and my husband is off playing golf or tennis or whatever? And, so it's just, that's a natural process. But I think to understand men are designed in a certain way, and to be a little bit sympathetic to that and say, hey, this is the way they're designed. Now let's work with that. And most women are actually very good at producing good husbands. So I don't say men are good at producing good husbands, because I'm not sure that that's the case. I actually believe that in many marriages, it's actually the woman who produces a good husband. Now, here's my really sexist comment for the day. I apologize, but my book title is Women Are Superior to Men. I'm sorry to say that men do not produce good wives. Now, that's a very interesting thing. Women often just make awesome wives. Like, I'm sorry to say this, but it's true. Women are very
We're just
caring.
born that way.
But women are caring and nurturing. And you go to school, and at age 17, 18 at school, girls are often shaking their heads very disapprovingly. Why the boys have to be like this? Why they're misbehaving? Why they're being irritating? And they're learning in class, and they're playing with each other's hair and being mature, and they're connecting emotionally with each other. And women are very, very much the emotional connectors and nurturers of the relationship in many ways, I think, on average. Now, I do have to add a proviso. Of course, there are horrible wives out there. Yes, there are. There are horrible women in the world. They're antisocial women. They're women who murder. And I don't think there are that many women who rape, but okay, there's some bad women out there who are terrible people and terrible wives. And there are husbands who go through divorces because their wives are absolute sociopaths and horrendous. So I'm not trying to say that every woman in the world is amazing, but I do think on average that many marriages, it really is the women who have to put the work into producing a workable outcome with their husbands rather than vice versa. And the amazing thing is, when we stand back from all the propaganda and all the politics, we kind of know this, because if you see a wife sort of ordering her husband around a bit, that's actually a pretty normal marriage. Well, if you see a husband ordering his wife around, you don't like that. It's like, and telling her, you're not good enough, you need to do better. But wives do tell their husbands, you're not good enough, you need to do better. You need to pick up your stuff. You need to come home on time from work. You need to give me a hand in the kitchen. And that's not abuse, and it's not wrong, and it's not unpleasant. as long as there's the positive energy that people are loving each other and giving each other affection and intimacy and all the other good things, we can politicize this all we want. But what I really would want is to see couples just being happy.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, there's 2 more questions I have to ask you. One is, you talk about the mysterious empty box that men sort of retreat into. And it's funny. So there's this meme that came out, maybe it's in Australia too. And it's these cartoon characters and they're going, "Are you feeling a little sad?" And the character goes, "Yeah." "Are you feeling a little mad?" "Yeah." Anyway, and so this meme is all over social media. And it's me trying to get my husband to talk about feelings, right? And so my daughter comes to visit with her boyfriend, and me and my daughter are just giggling because that's basically what we have to do to get our husbands to talk about their feelings. And this reminds me of this little box, right, that men retreat to and they don't come out. And so my daughter's 25, I'm 57, and we're with very different age groups, but they're still men. So talk to us about the box that they retreat to and what do we do to get them out?
Okay, I think that's actually a super difficult question, a super brilliant question, because it's actually not easy.
Right.
I think the first thing to say, one of the best things I had in writing this book was I really wanted to write a book that was real, not all the politics and social conventions, but just what do most married couples deal with, and laugh about it, because everyone's just so offended by everything all the time. Laugh about the fact that I'm a husband and get a lot of things wrong and irritate my wife. I think husbands can be quite irritating. It may even be one of our appeals in many ways. But so that's a very difficult question, because I think it's a combination of trying to, first of all, sympathize with where your husband's coming from, but also to help them find a path back to happiness. Mm-hmm. So I guess the issue for men is that we do often have this empty box that we like to go to. And we use the empty box for quite a lot of stuff. So sometimes just for relaxing, for getting away from things. So men go fishing. You don't find a lot of women on the river with their fishing rods for 5 hours staring into space. I've gone fishing with friends. I'm not actually, sorry, maybe it's different in the States. I don't actually think I've ever seen a woman on the river with a fishing rod sitting there staring back into space with a beer in her hand for 5 hours. But anyway, men do this.
I live on a river, and I can say I've seen couples doing this, but never women alone in my short experience.
Yeah, but I bet you've seen lots of men doing it alone.
Tons of men.
Exactly, yeah. So, we are so sexist. But anyway, so men do this. They sit in front of a screen watching a ball bounce around on the screen, and wives come and talk to them, and they send them away. I mean, one of my worst memories of my marriage, it's a really, I hope this doesn't produce tears on your part, but one of the worst memories of my marriage, I was watching a massive rugby match, and my team was about to score, and my wife comes and sits on my lap, puts her arms around me, and tries to have a conversation with me about something serious. It was like virtually the end of our relationship. I had to almost eject her physically. I was like, no. So men like staring at balls bouncing around on screens, and they like to...
I do that in our relationship, by the way. My husband walks in, and there's 27 seconds left. I'm like, now?
Yeah, no, that's more than fair. Men seem to react to stress, but also to where they relax. So they just shut down and they have this sort of empty space that they go to, which I think women, because they got these diverse brains with lots going on, do that a little bit less. Not that women don't watch Netflix, but it's a slightly different approach to how they do that. So when it comes to dealing with problems, it is a male response often to retreat and to go into this empty box. And I do think that's possibly one of the reasons why men have a higher suicide rate than women. Because the thing that you really should be doing when you're depressed is connecting, not disconnecting.
Right.
So the way that people feel better is to reconnect with their lives, to reconnect with the people that they love. Because if you don't connect with the people you love, how are you going to get the support to feel better? And it's really through love and support that we feel better in life. It's from being in relationships and feeling warmth and feeling human warmth. You don't feel better by being isolated on your own, being miserable and sitting with your problems in an empty box. So, and I also think it doesn't help deal with issues if you're in your empty box. So I think there's something to be said for the fact that there are times when wives should give their husbands a little bit of space.
Yeah.
Because often women can crowd men by going, we got to talk about it. We must talk about it now. And men start to go, you're nagging, leave me alone. Why won't you just leave me alone? So I think there is something to be said for giving men a little bit of space, letting them go to their empty box a bit, and then coming to them and saying, hey, when are we going to sit and talk about this issue? Because it is an issue. You're clearly feeling down. And maybe giving men the opportunity also to have a little bit of choice in saying how that's done. Because the way humans work, I'm sure everyone talks about stakeholder engagement in the US. It's a very important principle, is that you want to engage people in a way that they want to engage as well. And so when you're trying to force yourself on someone, which is great sexually in marriage, by the way, many men would wish that their wives forced themselves on them. That's great. But in a problem-solving sense,
right,
trying to force yourself on someone means that they feel threatened by that because you are enforcing your will on them and making them feel upset. Like, why are you trying to force me to do something I don't want to do? And the natural human response to that, because we are so designed for individuality and autonomy, is to push someone away and say, well, if you're going to be like that, I don't want to talk to you because I am my own person. Leave me alone. And then ego boundaries come into play. Right. But if you give your partner the opportunity to have a little bit more choice in how to do it, you're not actually doing that. You're saying to them, I want to take care of you. I want to engage with you. Now, when can we talk about this? And then sometimes that may require a little bit of encouragement. So if someone won't commit to talk about it at a time and a place, then you've got to go, hey, I'm not nagging you, but I am worried about you. I'm worried about this aspect of our relationship. We need to talk about it. When are we going to do that? Should we do that after dinner? And are you okay? And I think ultimately, sometimes you do have to push people a little bit more, because if men keep retreating, you have to bring them out. Women are right about this, because ultimately men will not solve their problems by retreating into their empty box. It's not a problem solver. You solve problems by talking about them, by coming up with solutions in a relationship, by compromising, by sharing feelings, and that can't be solved on your own. So I think there's something to be said for being a little bit less forceful, but also the fact that women have this right. It is a good thing to talk about problems, and men do need to do it as much as women do. Otherwise, they just never get better.
I love it. Okay, last question, because we have running out of time. I could talk to you for hours, which is
you too.
This question. And so my kids are grown up, but when they come to visit, I'm like, there's no sex happening in the house when my adult kids come home. And so you have, in your book, you talk about how do you have the best sex even when the kids are at home?
Okay, well, so the first thing to say about that is that I think, unfortunately, in the modern day, that I do have a lot of friends who believe that having kids is a good excuse not to have sex anymore. And it's not always very good for if either partner actually really wants to carry on having sex, which I think is quite normal. So I think with that, again, it's a matter of commitment and investment. So if you commit time and effort into something, it'll work. So I have a rule in all of my books, which is called outcome is proportional to investment. So the more you put into something, the more you're going to get out of it. And if you stop trying, then you'll get nothing.
Right.
So I think the one thing to do with that is to make sure that you have time put aside for intimacy and sex. And even if that's something which is part of a routine, that's still okay. Because even if you go, we're going to have sex every Wednesday and Friday night or whatever, and we're going to put aside time for it, great, have a date night, whatever you do, however frequently. I mean, I think things like frequency are very much an individual couple decision. But put aside time for it. If you have spontaneous opportunities and both couples are happy to do that, that's even better. I think, spontaneity in sexuality is something very exciting and something people really enjoy. But even if you just have routine at least keeps people in practice, keeps sex on the agenda. And if you have adult kids coming to stay, so you lock your door at night, I mean, other kids are going to bed. I think in my book, I talk about a couple that I saw, which was fascinating because the man saw me below testosterone, and he walked in and I said to them as part of their history, I said, well, how often do you have sex? And they looked at me like I was mad. And they said, never. I said, what do you mean never? They said, well, we have 4 kids, So I went, okay. So I said, well, why does that mean you can't have sex? And they go, ooh, well, when you have 4 kids, if you had 4 kids, you'd understand.
And you do have 4 kids.
I do have 4 kids. Anyhow, the conversation went on, and they basically said, well, how could you have sex if you've got kids? And I said to them, well, you could put a lock on your door. I mean, I know I'm a genius. Who would come up with it? They never taught me that at medical school. I had to come up with that one myself. So, I mean, none of this is stuff you train for at medical school. Right. But there was they had a whole long discussion with me, and they came to what you were saying, and they went, but the children might know what we're doing. And I said to them, hey, at some age, all children reach the realization that their parents must have had sex. Otherwise, we exist. And even though it's a bit yuck, humans are actually designed to deal with that because it's part of the human life cycle. So I said, that's okay. So they might know that their parents are having sex, but they're going to get over it. So they were so excited. There's like the best idea ever that they actually went away and actually did it. And the only problem was when they came back to their next follow-up appointment. Naturally, his testosterone levels were normal. They wanted to tell me all about it. And I was like, I like you guys, and I'm glad that you're happy. But there's some things that even doctors don't need to know about. So I put a lock on my door so they wouldn't come back.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I love that question because it's funny. Sometimes if I'm with I have all daughters, and so I'll make some allusion towards anything around sex. And they're like, oh, too much information. That's gross. And I'm like, oh my gosh, of course I'm having sex.
Oh no, well, there's a good one because my 14-year-old son, remarkably and miraculously, still believes his parents only had sex to have children.
Oh,
we haven't disabused him of that information yet. We like,
Oh, it's like believing in like Santa Claus still. It's like just until he finds out, he's gonna know it. I love it. If people want to get the book, where do they go?
So in the States, it's available on Amazon.com and also at Barnes & Noble.
Love it. Awesome. So go to Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble, and you can get this book around why women are superior to men. What I love about this conversation is we're saying, let's just talk and let's just forget like what's politically correct and let's just be who we are. And I freaking love it. So if I offended anyone, I love you. I just am having a great conversation with Dr. Ricky here. Ladies.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it as well, by the way.
Awesome. Good. I think that this is one of those podcasts you share with your girlfriends that you're talking about your husbands that can't freaking find anything in the refrigerator. So we can all understand to give them some compassion, because I'm going to just be like, maybe Dr. Ricky, I should just not ask him to find it in the fridge. Or
my wife doesn't give me that liberties, and she sometimes thinks I do things on purpose. And I go, why would I want to go and wander out of the kitchen for half an hour while you shout at me? I just can't see the secondary gain in that.
No, there's another meme. My husband sends me funny memes all the time. She's not. There's another one of this woman, and she's like sitting on the couch working on her laptop, and the husband is like doing circles, and it says, me getting up the courage to ask my wife where the like hot dogs are, whatever, like thinking about it, figuring out the best way to ask so she doesn't get super pissed off. I love it. I love couple memes. Send me your best ones. There's a lot here. Thank you so much for helping us understand each other. Ladies, whatever you do, always remember to life check yourself. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now. Hey, thanks for tuning into today's show. So if being in an intimate relationship in which you feel 100% seen, heard, and accepted by a high caliber man is a priority for you right now, and you're interested in seeing if you're a fit for working with me and my team at Dating with Dignity, here's what I want you to do. Just head over to DWD VIP, that's D as in dating, W, D as in dating, VIP.com, and book a call to speak with my team. We'll get on the phone with you for about 60 minutes, and you'll get crystal clear on what's stopping you from finding true love right now. We'll also take a look at what you want to create, what you want your whole life to look like when you're able to finally be fully expressed as a woman in a healthy relationship with an incredible guy. And if we can help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be, we will show you the fastest path possible that makes sense for you to do that. We help smart, successful women all over the world solve this one missing piece in their life so they can finally have it all. So to see if we can help you do the same thing, head over to DWDVIP.com. I'm Marni Battista, and let's talk soon.